Welcome to Washington Square News Op-Ed Live's second season. I'm joined today by Séamus McGuigan to talk about the vote for Scottish independence. Thank you, Séamus, for
Pleasure to be here, Omar.
So, could you give us a quick, you're the lone Scot, you told me, at NYU.
Yep,
Which is
blazing the trail.
Yeah, kind of a cool title to have, especially important now.
Yeah.
Would you give us a recap? Kind of explain to people who don't know what's going on, what is going on?
Well, right now, literally as we speak,
Yeah.
The polls have just closed and a referendum for Scottish independence. Scotland has had its own parliament now since 1999, devolved from the larger UK parliament. And after the Scottish National Party, which has always been traditionally the party of independence, won a majority in the 2011 election, they had a mandate to seek a referendum, and that's basically where we are now. It's led up everything that's kind of happened over these since that inception of the Scottish Parliament has kind of led up to today.
Did you talk about the feeling in Scotland?
It's
on the ground.
You know, I haven't been back since Christmas, but my mom is really deeply involved in the Yes campaign, and obviously I have a bunch of friends still back there who tell me, and it's you know, before this vote, really before the last month of this vote, Scotland was a really politically apathetical country, and what we're really seeing is an awakening of people who never engaged in politics before, deeply deprived people who felt that the system was completely not representing them anymore, people who felt that like the whole concept of democracy was flawed, are now the most active engagers.
Well, we had 97% voter turnout.
It's incredible. I mean, when you consider the last election we had in Scotland, which was the European Parliament elections in May, they had a 35% turnout, and now we're going up to, you know, the highest turnout that we've had reported so far has been 95%, which is incredible. Some polling stations had more people turn out to vote half an hour after they opened than they had during their entire time than they were open during the 2010 Westminster election.
Because we're in the midst of the voting, because I mean, when this video is posted,
there will be a result.
There will be a result. So let's talk about hypotheticals. What if the Yes campaign wins? What happens?
Well, it's a long process of negotiation has to begin. Scotland, if we vote yes, intends to declare independence on March 16, 2016. And so that's where the negotiations are all leading up to. Alex Salmond, the First Minister of Scotland, has said he wants to assemble a team from both sides of the argument, so leaders in the No campaign, leaders from the Yes campaign, leaders from civil society, and he will take that group down and will negotiate a settlement with the Westminster government, which will involve currency. That will probably be the first thing that will happen, because the markets and the institutions like the IMF will demand certainty on that.
Though they plan to maintain a British pound.
That's the Scottish government. The Yes campaign has said that they want to maintain the pound, and all the Westminster parties have said that they won't allow that to happen. If there is a yes vote, I'm very, very sceptical about them continuing that position, because it basically rings...
Of who continuing that position?
Of the Westminster parties
okay.
Still holding that position, because it runs counter to all economic sense for them to lose like the interest rates and being able to set control and having like the stability that North Sea oil and Scottish export industry provides to their currency. A currency is only as valuable as the resources that are traded under it. And so if they were to lose a good percentage of their GDP in terms of the pound, the pound would devalue massively. And so it really is just a political, you know, maneuver. I think it's more of a bluff than it is.
Okay, say there's a no vote. The no's have it, which is the way it looks like it will go now.
Right now, yes, that's the way it looks like it's going to go. Yeah. A no vote is almost more complicated than a yes vote. At least in a yes.
It has like longer lasting effects.
It has more uncertainty.
Yeah.
At least if there's a yes vote, we know that there's going to be two groups of people who are going to sit in a room and they're going to come out with something. There's a white paper for what the Scottish government wants to achieve out of those negotiations, and presumably a compromise can be reached there. But there is the certainty of on March 16th we will be an independent country. That would be a definite. There is the uncertainty. There is kind of chaos if we vote no, because when the polls switched towards yes, the Westminster parties suddenly came up with this really this they called it the vow to Scotland, and it was basically a list of powers that they never ever mentioned exactly what they would be, but they promised that if Scotland voted no, they would get. It was basically the maximum devolution, almost federalism. But the uncertainty that surrounds that is the fact that most of David Cameron's government has said that they will come out and vote no against it when it comes up in Parliament. And so it will likely not pass, and so that leaves us in a position where Scotland is probably in a worse place constitutionally than it was if it had voted, if this referendum had never taken place.
Do you think if the no vote is the winning vote, that the Scottish people will revert to apathy? Or do you think this movement? It actually really depends on UK response.
Yeah.
If they agree to.
The end game here is really depends on two factors. It depends on what the Westminster government does in relation to these powers. If they carry out their pledge, then it is likely that Scottish voters will be placated, at least for a while, with federalism, probably for another generation. If they fail to deliver on those powers, though, and this is the second factor, if this resurgence in democratic fervour stays with us, we're probably going to be back here in 5 to 10 years asking ourselves the same question. And there's precedent for this. In 1979 we held a referendum on devolution to get a Scottish Parliament. There was actually a majority for it, but it didn't meet the turnout requirement for it to be legally binding. And we were promised more powers, and what we got instead was the poll tax imposed on us. Because the Tory, Margaret Thatcher's government saw how dangerous the Home Rule movement in Scotland was to the integrity of the United Kingdom. And so that whole thing led to the anger that then led to the really decisive 75% majority vote for a Scottish Parliament with tax raising powers, which is where we are right now.
Any departing thoughts, Séamus?
I'm more interested in motivations. That's really what I question. Because you see all these people out in the street, you see this Scotland is a different country from when I left it. It's completely changed. The face of it has completely changed, and yet it looks like we're still going to vote no.
Change for the better, or change?
Change for the better. It's awake. It's like a new country.
Okay,
it feels like a bit of a revolution is kind of taking place, but we've still voted no. At least that's the way it's looking. And I really want to know the motivations of that, what they call the silent majority. And I think that it's something we're going to have to grapple with as a nation, as to what those people's position is, because, and I don't want to, it's in the aftermath of these things I like to be conciliatory, but really people who walk into the polling station and are offered such a clear vision of a better future, when they see in the news statistics like 1 in 5 Scottish children are born into poverty, and they see taxes imposed by Westminster, and yet because they're worried about a pension that they have or a share that they hold that probably won't even be affected by it, they're just so narrowed by self-interest. We have to ask ourselves, I personally consider that an act of democratic betrayal of Scottish values, of Scottish people, of kind of a wider value of making something better. And that's the kind of schism that we're left with. That's what I'm worried about. I don't worry about the people of Scotland. We've been through worse things. But we now enter kind of a really uncertain time and an exciting time. In many ways, not in the way that I hoped, if it is a no vote, but it's nonetheless an exciting time, because uncertainty is always in a way exciting. But I'm sure we'll be back here in the months and years to come.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I don't think
Thank you, Omar.
most people don't understand this issue, so I'm glad we're talking
No,
about it.
it's a pleasure to articulate it, and I hope that a yes vote can still come out, and Scotland and America can do some good things together. But we'll see.
Thanks, Seamus.
Thank you, Omar.